Okay, Alan, we are continuing the episodes here, the project of getting this engine unstuck. Catch us up on where we are and what we're doing next.
Okay, well, we have a 1907 Delauney Belleville with a stuck engine. It wasn't started for maybe 10 years, waiting for some tires to be made. We've tried everything to get the engine unstuck. We've now got to the point where we've actually taken the cylinder off, which is what this is. And now it's upright, and then I've got a press. I've made a press, and I'm pulling on the wrist pin so not to bend the rod. So this is underneath the wrist pin. I've got the cable attachments on the cable, and I've already tightened up my makeshift press or puller enough where I've stretched the cable, so I've retightened all of the cable locks. So now it's at the highest point of tension, and the cable is the smallest diameter. So now I have 6 cable locks on here. I have 2 up here, and I did a through bore in the threaded rod. And then I have 4 down here. And so they're tightened to the smallest diameter the cable's gonna get to. The cable's got a tension of 9,800 pounds maximum before it snaps. And with the pressure that I've got on it now, I'm pretty well assured I'm at the maximum.
Right.
So the next, if I moved it another 1/4 inch, it would snap. We've got 5 pounds of dry ice in here. We've got a cup inside the piston. So the cup is this. We're lucky that it has aluminum pistons, and we have a steel bore. The thing you can't do when you try to loosen up an aluminum piston in a steel bore, you can't heat up the whole casing, because steel expands at about half the rate of aluminum. So even if you did heat it up, the aluminum is going to expand more, make it tighter. So the only alternative is you cool the piston down. Well, the piston is inside of a steel bore, and when you do that, yes, the aluminum will transfer some of the coolness to the steel, but because the aluminum cools at twice the rate, as the aluminum starts to cool and come down in diameter, it unseats itself from the steel, causing it to be more insulated. So as you pour more dry ice into the piston, at some point, it'll be about 180 degrees cooler than the steel, because the dry ice is about 110 degrees below zero, or 110 degrees, and then it's about 70 degrees in the room, so it's about 180 degree differential, assuming perfect conditions. And of course, there'll still be some contact, but as it gets cooler and cooler, it's going to get smaller and smaller, and I hope it's going to snap and pull this, have a nice release celebration.
We're hopeful. We are very hopeful. Okay, good. I like the theory. I have never seen anyone test this kind of a thing out.
So this is dry ice.
Yep.
The dry ice is carbon dioxide.
Look at it. It's like a fried egg on a frying pan bouncing around on that steel.
Okay, now the dry ice is basically packed inside of the cup, up the upside down piston. It's releasing from the cylinder walls because that dry ice is going down more and more and more. And as it melts, as it vaporizes, it's not connected to the steel anymore. So it's making the piston much colder than the steel. And as the piston gets smaller and smaller, it's more insulated from the steel because it's continuing to pull down. So in a few minutes, we should be able to try releasing this again, but we'll wait to let it get as cool as it can be.
Suppose if you want to go crazy, you could put a little heater on the outside of the block.
That sounds like a good idea, but it wouldn't work.
Okay.
Because the outside of the block, there's a void inside for the water jackets. So you're just heating, you're not really getting to the cylinder.
Right.
Now, if we were flowing hot water into water jackets, it'd be a little bit different.
Yeah, because the real problem is down where the water jacket is. I see that.
So we're poking it inside the piston more and more and more,
Starting to get some,
getting it off the cylinder walls.
a little bit of frostbite on the...
Yeah. So there's going to be some coolness parlayed to the cylinder. But the good thing is, even if the cylinder and the piston are exactly the same temperature, 100 degrees below zero, the piston aluminum is going to
It's going to shrink faster.
shrink twice as fast.
Yeah.
And as it shrinks, it's going to be disconnected from the outside.
Besides, and I may be wrong, but do I remember that aluminum will just shrink literally more, not just faster?
Yeah, it's twice as much.
Yeah, okay.
The coefficient is 2 to 1.
Yeah, okay.
Over steel. Okay, that's a lot.
That's a lot more than you were able to do just a few minutes ago.
So I've done now that twice. So so since it's still above the top of the piston cup, it's still getting colder and colder and colder.
Right. That's something you haven't been able to do in.
So that's really good. I'm able to move it now, and I wasn't able to.
Okay, we are having some hope here.
I have the sledgehammer on the counter. I don't want to use that. Pretty much everybody knows that if you just pour Coke on, it'll release.
Yeah, that's
so
what
since
this
everybody
is for.
knows that to be a boring video, so we're trying to do it scientifically from an engineering standpoint.
Okay.
Knowing that Coke would just take care of it.
Right. A little more movement.
That's a lot more. Okay, still working. We certainly couldn't do that before.
No, there's still dry ice in there. I guess as it cools off inside here, the dry ice is evaporating slower.
Yep, it is.
Something's happening.
Yep. And we still see the dry ice is still above the piston cup.
Yep. There's even just a touch of frost on the inside of that cylinder. That heat transfer is definitely happening.
Yep. Wow. Wow, wow, wow.
see what happens.
But so I wasn't able to do this at all earlier.
No. Well, you're getting quite a few turns out of it. I feel like it's moving, man.
It's really easy compared to not being able to move it at all. It's almost easy, and not easy, but
well, you're not straining like you were before.
No, it's moving. After a month and a half, it looks like it's finally coming loose.
Wow. You keep looking down like, is the cable stretching? Or
no, I think it's getting closer to the top here. Yeah, it's definitely coming.
Wow.
Huh. I can save the Coke.
There you go. Oh my goodness, I feel victory. It's coming.
I didn't think it would really work, but it is.
We just thought this would be a fun demonstration.
Right.
Just for everybody at home to know, Alan was fully prepared for this to be a failure and just count it as a learning experience. But it's actually, we're going to learn from a success.
Yep.
You can see this. You can see this literally moving.
Yeah, no, it came out 2 inches.
Yeah.
So I need to rejig this and reset. So
yep. Okay.
We'll pause for a little bit.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, so
okay, if you're not paying attention, we now have 2 spacers. This process allows us to raise up the rig enough to add another spacer in here so we can go further.
And we've broken 3 of these steel cables.
Wow.
So without the ice, there was no way.
It just wasn't working.
We were approaching the 9,800 pounds braking force.
Now, when you're breaking cables, you know we're applying some force. And that's not only breaking the cable, but you're doing that with it completely soaked in Kroil.
Right.
So it wasn't like you were just trying to fight rust or something. And this engine was designed and built in maybe 06, 07, 06, 07.
Right, so it's 115 or 16 years old. So everything is not replaceable. We can't replace the rod. We can't replace the cylinder. We don't want to tear the piston up and start drilling into it because we're going to still mess up the bore.
Yep.
I know we're going to have to, do another 10,000s or so in the cylinder, or we'll figure out what problem has occurred, but we haven't created any more problems than what was already created.
Right.
So now it's going to be faster because the water jacket is now pretty much above where the piston is.
Yeah. Well, at this rate, we're going to need another spacer here pretty soon.
Yeah.
We're now up to 3 spacers of height on the rig.
We still have dry ice in the cup of the piston, as you can see by looking down. So that's what's doing the magic, is that dry ice.
Yep.
And it's extremely easy compared to what it was. With all the times of snapping these steel cables, you just kept wondering, how am I going to take care of this thing? So you're thinking of nitrogen. Nitrogen is even better for cooling, but the problem is it will fracture and maybe completely ruin the aluminum. And you don't really want to do that because you don't know what you're going to be left with when that happens.
Right.
And the nitrogen might even do something to the cast steel, cast iron from 117 years ago. So you want to use the least amount of pressure, the smallest sledgehammer necessary.
Right.
So our sledgehammer is dry ice and a 9,800-pound tensile strength cable. We now have the piston approaching the end of the compression zone of the cylinder.
Mm-hmm.
So we can go another ½ inch before we move our spacers. Moving.
Almost ready to come up by hand, huh? There it is, folks. It is out. What do you think, Alan? It came out.
It came out. It's out. It's out.
It's a little bit of a mess. Look at that. We got frostbite on the bottom of it, or actually it's the top of the piston, technically.
So we'll clean it up later, but what a menace.
Yeah, after weeks of fighting this thing, you finally have it.
Yeah, but we have Dennis now, and Dennis solved it, and I can save my Coke. All is good.
Let me get a quick close-up of these rings that are kind of really caked in place. And obviously the Kroil was kind of weeping through the wrist pin, I guess, or something. But that is, there was a combination. It was rust as well as the coked up oil that was fighting you. So, okay, very good.
Thank you.
Yep.